Are you ready for a story from the book of Disney's Bedtime Favorites? Tonight, I'm going to read a story out of the 101 Dalmatians, Detective Lucky. A blustery wind was blowing outside, but the Dalmatian puppies, all 99 of them, were snug and cozy in their new house. The puppies crowded around Nanny, who was reading them a bedtime story. Lucky loved bedtime stories. He especially loved ones about detectives. He wished he could be a detective. When Nanny's story was over, Pongo and Perdita tucked the puppies into bed. But Lucky wasn't tired, not even a little bit. He couldn't stop thinking about all those mysteries he would solve if he were a detective. One by one, the other puppies drifted off to sleep. Soon, Lucky was the only one still awake. Suddenly, his ears twitched. Creak! Squeak! Bang! What was that strange sound? Lucky bolted upright. Maybe this was it, the mystery he had wished for. Maybe the sound was a clue. Luckily, carefully climbed out of bed. His parents were in the living room with Roger and Anita. No one would notice if Lucky slipped through the doggy door. He could go outside, find some clues, crack the case, and be back before anyone even knew he'd left. Lucky scampered outside. He looked around. He had never been outside alone at night. The wind had died down, but it was very dark. All around him, Lucky saw strange, shadowy shapes. Lucky thought about going back inside, but he knew that a true detective would solve his case no matter what. If he wanted to be a detective, he'd have to go on, dark or no dark. Lucky sniffed the air. An unfamiliar smell made his nose twitch. Maybe it was another clue. Lucky pressed his nose down to the dirt and sniffed again. There it was, that same smell. His tail wagged as he followed the scent into the woods. This is exactly what a real detective would do, Lucky thought, eagerly as he tracked the smell to a hollow log. Lucky poked his head into the log to see what was inside, and found two spooky eyes staring back at him. Lucky yelped in surprise. He backed out of the log as quickly as he could. Strange noises filled the air, and Lucky felt something brush by his head. Hoo, hoo, hoo! Flap, 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 whoosh! Lucky was surprised by spooky sounds. He didn't know what was making any of them. And to make matters worse, he had been so busy tracking that smell that he hadn't noticed how far he had roamed. He had no idea where he was going or how to get home. There was only one thing to do: run! Lucky raced through the forest, ducking under branches and leaping over rocks. When the trees began to thin, he charged forward, running faster and faster until, wham! He knocked right into someone. In a flurry of fur and tails and hisses and growls, Lucky and the stranger tumbled over and over. Ruff, ruff. Then the puppy heard a familiar voice. Lucky, is that you? It was Sergeant Tibbs, the cat who helped rescue Lucky and his siblings from Crua de Vil. Sergeant Tibbs, Lucky cried in relief. Help! I'm lost. I don't know how to get home. Sergeant Tibbs knew just what to do. He had led Lucky to the old barn, where the two filled in the colonel on Lucky's situation. This calls for the midnight bark, the colonel said. The colonel lumbered over to the door and howled into the night. Lucky waited anxiously for a response. At last it came. Bark, bark, bark. Yip, 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 yip. Arr, arr, arr. The barks echoed across the countryside to the Dalmatian plantation, where a sleepy Pongo opened his eyes. It's a lost pup, he whispered to Peditra. I'll go help. Follow the barks, they'll lead you home again, the colonel told Lucky. Good luck, lad. Thank you, Lucky told the colonel and Sergeant Tibbs. Then, listening closely, he ran into the night. The colonel was right. Following the sounds of the barks, Lucky soon realized he was on the way home. And now that he was less scared, Lucky was able to solve all the mysteries he stumbled upon, even the creaky old gate that had started it all. Back at the Dalmatian plantation, Pongo was shocked to see Lucky bounding up to him. The midnight bark was for you, he asked. Dad, I solved the mystery, Lucky exclaimed, just like a real detective. Tell me about it in the morning, Pongo whispered as he led Lucky back to bed. And no more mysteries tonight. Lucky agreed and snuggled up next to his siblings, ready to fall asleep after his big adventure. Suddenly his ears twitched. Croak! Squeak! What was that strange sound? Maybe a clue? Hope you enjoyed the bedtime story, boys. Grandpa loves you. Have a good night.